Hello everyone, it's Christine here and I'm back with an idea that I wanted to share with you because I thought it might be an idea that you want to join me in creating. So I'm going to talk about the idea tonight, give you the chance to go away and get some supplies if you'd like to do something similar or adapt something from this. And what I'm going to be creating is a perpetual calendar in the form of fabric and stitch. And it's going to be a place where I can display and incorporate and honour and enjoy the beautiful Stitchery swap squares that I received as part of the Great Big Little Stitchery Swap that was hosted by the lovely Annie Claxton over at Arty Farty Annie, and which we're currently in round 2 of. So as part of the Great Big Little Stitchery Swap, or the Stitchery Swap for short, you find yourself some swap partners or some swappies, and you create a Stitchery square for them and send it to them, and they create a Stitchery square for you and send it to you. And these are my incredible, in fact they're 3 deep in each of these piles. These are my incredible squares that I've received so far, most of them from round 1, but I've already had 1 in as part of round 2. And so I've been so eager to come up with a way that I can really enjoy them. I was thinking putting them in a Treasury of Stitchy Friendships book, but then I came up with this idea because I've just been thinking about, wouldn't it be great to have something in my craft room that is repurposable, that I can use year to year, but rather than just grabbing sheets of paper, I've got somewhere to write things, but in a fabric and stitch form. And that's how I came up with this idea of a perpetual fabric and stitch calendar with these incredible artworks featuring on each of the months. So what am I using as my materials? First up, I'm using a sheet of calico. Now, calico, or homespun as I think some of you call it, you can get it, I think, in bleached variety, but I like the natural variety. I got a whole lot of it from an op shop or a charity store or thrift store. And yeah, you can get a lot of it for a reasonable price. It is quite thin, so you'll generally want to back it with something, and this has been in the dryer and not been ironed, that's why it's wrinkly. But I quite like, even when it's ironed, it has almost the look of paper. It's really lovely and it's got a really nice feel to it, and just the little wrinkles that sort of remind me of paper, but it's just very cool then having a calendar that is made of cloth. So what I did with that calico was I took a section, a square, although it's not exactly a square, I'm sure I'll get nicher as I go along over the 12 months. And I've learnt a few lessons just through sort of mocking this up that I will share with you as well. I'm using a piece of felt on the back, and it's a felt that's got a bit of, it's a bit stiffer than like a fully wool felt. I think it's used in like manufacturing for the interiors of cars or boats and things. It's got one side that sort of feels a bit rougher and then one that's a bit softer, but it's got a nice amount of, I guess, sort of substance in it. But importantly, it can also be easily have a needle push through it without too much problem. I'm using my javelin as Linda calls it, but even a finer needle will go through it. But that's a really good little tip if you are planning to stitch or create a fabric or sort of lay fabric on top of something else like felt. Just make sure your needle will pass easily through it if you're planning to use it as a stitching base. So when you've got your square of fabric, I suggest that before you even draw things on, don't do what I did and draw it and then have to kind of line it up. I suggest the first thing you do is fold it over, and what I've done is just done little, like you do when you're wrapping a present, sort of get your fabric there and then put a fold in and then fold it just so you get a really nice crisp corner. and then I'm using these little quilting clips to hold it in place. So, and obviously there, and so yeah, eventually I will put some little stitches in, and I can probably just put them into the back here. I could also use a little bit of yeah, fabric glue if I wanted to just sort of glue this down to the back if you're not wanting to do the stitching. And you could also put a bit of yeah, fabric glue around, but I'm planning not to do that because I want to keep it nice and stitchable. So yeah, I'd first of all get your calico, give it an iron, get it over your base. In terms of the size that I'm working to, and again, you can adapt this to what suits you. I'll give you centimeters. Apologies if you don't work in centimeters, but you convert it. Mine's about 41 centimeters squared. I think it's just a tiny bit over. Oh no, it's about 41 exactly. So I didn't set out to necessarily do it square, but that's how it's worked out. And I'm happy with that. And then for the sizing, I've worked using just my metal ruler because it's really handy. It's got a right angle, so it makes it easy to get things nice and straight. When you've got one line there, you can kind of line it up so that things get drawn on nice and straight. And I've used this width to create the squares for my grid, so that way I could just keep them again really nice and square. It doesn't worry me too much if they're not, because I'm planning to be stitching the grids, and I'm planning to use probably a range of different stitches, even things like couching down a wool or something. That's another possibility that I will explore, and including like with this wool from the beautiful Kalund artisan mills. Yeah, it's got different thickness in it, so if I use that it wouldn't be even lines anyway, but I thought I'll just try and get it as neat as I can to start, and then I can add the stitching detail. And so the plan is to stitch in the grid lines and the outer lines. So stitch, stitch, stitch. I'll probably use a variety of stitches, I think. I'll wait and see, or I might even just, yeah, I guess I can play around. For the first one I might just do like running stitch, but I'll see what takes my fancy. And I'm also planning to stitch in the letters. So in Australia we generally start our calendars with a Monday. I think in the US, now correct me if I'm wrong, I think you generally start with a Sunday and then finish with a Saturday. So you can do it whatever way suits you for your calendar. And I've just done M, T, U, W, T, H, F, S, A and S, U. And I'll be stitching those in as well. I'll stitch the outline of my letters, and I did toy with doing the whole of January or the whole of the months. I thought for the longer months I'll probably just do the shortened version of them, so I can make them a bit bigger, and that way when they're in the room they'll just sort of, yeah, stand out a bit more. I'll stitch in my little ideas segment. So this section down here is where I'm planning I can write in various ideas. And then the idea with the Perpetual calendar is that each year, depending when that month starts, you write in the dates of the month corresponding. So I believe next year, January 1 is actually going to be a Monday. So that's why I've written 1, 2, 3. But this would be the bit that I don't stitch in. I'm only going to use my Frixion marker to write. So let's say 8, 9, 10, 11. So we'd go that way, numbering down the month. And then when we get to the end of the month, well, in fact, you can then write in other things. And I've got Frixion markers in a whole range of colours. I've got blue, red, black. And I've just written in a sample using my blue Frixion marker of an activity that I want to do on the 1st of the year. So stitch in the shade and plan projects. So some lovely creative activities planned in. But then if I decided I wanted to remove that, all I have to do is apply some heat. Now I'm doing it a bit more carefully just so I don't erase my grid lines, but remember my grid lines will be stitched in so they won't erase in time. and I'll be able to just apply my heat and get rid of the writing. And likewise, at the end of the year, when you're done, you get rid of the days that you've written in, and you'll be able to then start the next year. And if the next year starts on a 1, on a Wednesday, you just write your days in there. So the only bits that are going to be stitched are the grid lines, the month, and I'm thinking I might do some micro mosaic in here, or yeah, the sky's the possibility. I could applique whole sizes, yeah, all sorts of possibilities. Just making sure I don't lose my needle there. So yeah, that's the concept. Stitch in the bits that are going to stay over time, and then it's a perpetual calendar because every year you can write in the days based on when they fall in the month, and you can write whatever you want on the calendar, in the squares, in the ideas. And then the other idea I have about it is that throughout the year I always end up with so many scraps. Even in a given week I just end up with scraps upon scraps of beautiful things, and I'm thinking I can throughout the month decorate around, just sort of appliquing things on, to create a decorative area around the calendar. And even if I don't get it all appliqued in a given year, because this is a calendar that I'll come back to year after year, I can add more elements, whether it's adding then a lace over the top, or if I only got this side done, I could add more to the other side. So that's another fun idea. And I figured if I ended up with lots of scraps, I could even put in a little extra bit of sort of calico and sew it sort of down the side and have it like a little flippy or a little snippet roll that could actually hang down there. Or I could even use one of my little wooden reels and attach one of those and have a little snippet roll hanging off and rolling off one of those. So possibilities are endless. Even if I end up with more ideas, again, I can always just stitch another piece of calico on, and then have it almost like a pad of paper. So it's, yeah, the ideas are endless. So then moving on to the artworks. I toyed with the idea of having 2 artworks or 1 artwork across the top. In the end, I went with, I think I'm going to go with 3, because I like the idea of things in 3s together. I think it just sort of is artistically pleasing to my eye, and it's almost like a little curated collection. And so what I've done is sorted through the squares that I've received so far and put them into some initial groupings of 3s. Now I can potentially change this as it goes forward, because as I start to receive other squares, I might want to swap some around and get different things together. But yeah, I thought I'd talk you through and show you what I'm thinking for each of the sets of 3 squares. I've still got some other fun ideas to show you, including how I'm planning to do the backing board, as well as something fun that I'm planning to do underneath of each of the squares. So stay tuned for those ideas. But let's take a look at some of the squares. So I've got 3 beautiful blue squares across the top. I picked those out because of the blues, because of the commonality of some of the stitching elements. So it's blues with beautiful little pops of colour or pops of metallic and lovely stitching. Then I've got a set that are more in the sort of vintagey tones and burgundies and natural tones, beautiful sort of nature, flowers and bird scenes, beautiful buttons. So again, I just love looking at the commonality across the squares. Then I've got some that have beautiful purples in them. So yeah, sort of a beautiful purpley, bluey tone flowing through these. Lovely textures, again, beautiful textures on each of them. Got little Travis in the garden smelling the flowers, beautiful spire. Yeah, and just beautiful little embellished pieces over here. So I thought they'd go nicely together. And then I've got some lovely colourful ones. So we've got Sip Tea, we've got Smell the Flowers, and we've got a beautiful whimsical house with flowers. So I thought there was a nice flowers, colourful little sayings flowing across those ones, and some, yeah, really good commonalities of colours. Then we've got some beautiful blooming floral ones. Just, yeah, so beautiful. I'm just still absolutely blown away by everyone's incredible squares. So yeah, just a lovely flow across those. But as you can see, like, you could really put them together in a million different ways. Then we've got some beautiful birds and butterflies. And so for this one, it was playing sort of into the browns, the little pops of yellow, the pops of red. So I thought that could be really nice together. And again, I'll probably just, yeah, work out which way I sort of arrange the pieces. But yeah, I think they flow together really nicely. And then I've got some lovely vibrant, probably put them like this. So we've got dragonfly and got butterfly and just beautiful colour, vibrant. I mean, who cannot be happy when you look at those? And then beautiful, another gorgeous little Travis out. And so this one's a bit of a holiday inspired or sort of travel inspired. So we've got the beautiful Travis on the beautiful English moors and moorlands. Then we've got a gorgeous beach with a bird, which reminds me of the little the Paulina beach on Elba, named after Napoleon's sister, and it's got a beautiful little island like that you can swim out to. So that reminded me a bit of that. And then I've got this beautiful square with Paris and waves and dolphins and other influences. So yeah, I thought that was a little collective of travel related. So as you can see, I've already got some amazing pieces. I haven't got enough to fill all the months yet with 3 each. I do have a few extras that came in as well. I have this beautiful square that came from one of my lovely subscribers who I'd sent a little giveaway package, and she sent me back this beautiful card. It's attached to the card, but I'm going to see if I can remove the square and possibly use it on my calendar because I love it. And then underneath that, I've got a very special square that was from one of my swappers. They didn't want it shown on camera, so I'm totally respecting that, but I just absolutely adore it, and I will find a way to have it in my calendar, but I won't be showing you just because I am respecting their wish. But it is something that's very special to me. It's got beautiful Travis on it, and it was just such a thoughtful and gorgeous piece. So let me just carefully put these back. But as I say, I could even change my plans as I go along about which ones I group together. But I thought I'd start with a plan so I don't get overwhelmed. And this is something I don't have to get the whole year done before the start of the year. I just really have to have January done, and then I can work on the next month even within that month. So I'll just see how I go. But I don't think it will actually take that long now that I've kind of figured out the method. And that's why I thought I'd come on and share it with you, because that way you too can have a think about if you want to do something similar. And you could do it whatever size you want. You could just do one with a single picture and smaller squares. I wanted it this size so that I do actually have enough room to write into it. So that was kind of my objective for that. So just pop these back around because they are so pretty, and I shouldn't deprive you the chance to stare at them. So I did say I was going to talk about some other elements to it. So with these squares, I'm planning to just keep them with their borders unless I need to trim them down a little bit, and then just to stitch them across the top. Now, what I'm planning underneath them is to do a little print onto a transfer paper, and then transfer a picture of the square that I created for the person whose square is on the front. So in this case, this is the square from the lovely Annie Claxton. And this is the square I sent to Annie, a photo of it. So I'm planning, at the moment I've just printed it on paper to show you the concept, because I'll probably get them sized. That's probably about right, I think. And I'm planning to, print them onto the paper, which you then iron onto the calico. So once I've got those done, that would be probably the first thing that I would do, is make sure I transfer them, or I can even just transfer them onto a separate piece of calico and then stitch that piece down in here, which I might do as well if I find I'm having any sort of struggles with it. So that's the idea underneath there. But then I have another little fun idea. When I was making my squares for each person, after I finished them, I kept aside my little container of scraps where I had been putting the various makings of the square. So in this case, these are my scraps from the making of the Annie Claxton square. So there's the little crown that went on. So there was a spare one of the little crown. There's some of the fabric that made the little book. There's some of the rickrack that ran down there. Don't know if I've got any of the yellow rickrack. Nope. I've got the pom-poms that went across the top. I think I've got a longer section of those. I've got some of the colourful threads. I've got some of the fabrics that I used in the square and the hexie. And what else have I got? Got little bits of lace that were used on the dress. More little bits of fabric. More bits of fabric. And what I'm thinking I might do, or will do, is create a little collage to sit behind the square, or around the square, probably around the square, because if I'm going to do it onto some calico, then I can actually lay my little mosaic pieces around the square, and so that will just bring in some of the material elements to it, almost like a little sampler of what went into the makings of the square. So that's the idea there, and I can even incorporate things like the threads, etc. And I just think that's going to be a really fun little thing to be able to, and he's got a cute little behind cover to be able to flip it up and see the square that I sent the person as well. So let's make sure I don't lose my little scruffy bits, because I will probably want all of them. And I do have some larger bits of the fabrics that I used in some of them as well, which I can always raid. I've even got a little sequin. Definitely got more of those sequins. I've got rolls upon rolls of those sequins. So let me just put all of those back into the bag. But that is the plan. So I've got a bag for each of my people. I've any scraps. Each of them is labelled. So I can track them back to the person that they belong to. So that will go like that, and these will be sort of sewn in so they're sitting sort of equal distance between the top and the bottom. Then what I'm planning to do is have a backing board so that I can sit it up at the end of my desk and have it standing up. Sorry, my phone's telling me that it's low on battery. I'm talking too long. And what I'm going to do is be able to put some pins in and then have it held in place. So what I've done is used an old rice bag, 20 kilos. Can you believe we went through 20 kilos of rice? It was really beautiful rice. It was so long and fluffy. It was absolutely gorgeous. We did share some with family, but we got through 20 kilos of rice, which is amazing. Got it from a food supply place where they write the name on the bag when they're delivering it. So it's got my name, Christine's rice. And it's just, a large bag. But what I'm thinking is I can use it to also create a little pocket at the back which might be a nice place to keep, for example, the little journal where I'll probably put the cards and other bits and pieces that people sent me. So I'll make probably a paper journal, I think, for that. And so what I've done to create my little backing board is I have wrapped some hessian, which I had from the reverse art truck, around some cardboard and then stuck it inside. I probably still need to do about another layer to get it a nice sort of a nice tight fit, or maybe just put some stitches down the side. And what I'm thinking, because I don't need to keep something that says rice on it, I'm thinking I'll use this board also to applique on, or possibly just to stick down. Not sure if I'm going to stitch. I could stitch if I don't stitch down the bag, but otherwise applique on various fabrics and scraps from my desk. So I end up with this lovely colourful fabric board underneath that I can add to over time as well. Similar to how I'm planning around the outside of here to use the scraps that I get every time when I'm creating something, and just to add lovely little appliques of scraps around the outside, as well as doing my micro mosaic decorations or doing interesting stitching as well. So it's just going to be a place to play, and even when I've got those scraps appliqued down, I can also do fun stitching over that as well. I think I'll leave, although I suppose I could also put scraps around as well. I'll just have to sort of think about how it's going. Otherwise I might leave the tops sort of more neutral and just work in this area down here. And I can't remember if I did start recording this before, so I can't remember if I've said this before. If I wanted to add more ideas, so this is where I'll write down my creative ideas, I can add some further bits of calico, almost like sheets of paper. So apologies if I've said that in this video. I had to do a re-record because I was just like, what are you saying, Christine? My goodness. So that is the plan. I hope I said this earlier as well, is that I recommend that you first of all get your calico onto your felt and folded, and then you draw in your grid. That way you can get it nice and central. I'll probably go back, and because this isn't perfectly central, so I'll probably redraw this before I actually start to do my stitching. But I wanted to get on and show you the concept so you could have a think about if you wanted to do something similar. But yeah, if you don't have stitchery swaps, you could put your own stitchery up there. You could put your favorite bits of fabric. You could, yeah, sky's the limit. Or you could keep it as a space to add a stitch a day, or a piece of fabric a day, or an embellishment a day. So there's lots and lots and lots of possibilities. You could also do your stitch a day in your squares, and then keep this, or you could do one stitch this year, and then when you come back to it the next year, you do another stitch. So lots of different ideas, but I wanted something where I can document creative things, scribble, and then be able to reuse it the following year, and most importantly to really be able to enjoy all these beautiful pieces of art that I have received and am receiving. So thanks so much for watching. Ask me any questions you've got in the comments. Let me know if this is spurring on for you a bit of an idea about what you might like to do. And then, yeah, get ready to, stitch along and create with me. So I'll probably, I think, go away and get this sort of stitched together, stitch the grid lines down, and then we can probably come back and do a bit of that stitching. And I'll also get my sort of prototype of the images underneath, and then we can maybe do some of that collaging of fabric around. Might be fun as well. I don't want to make it really boring and just make you watch me stitching all the grid lines, but I'll make a start on it, and then we can do some of the fun elements together. So thanks so much, and I will see you soon. Bye everyone.